Hello, Thor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, try again. Thor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Now you're back. So, great. So, yeah, good to see you. There is a little bit of a situation out there near Grindavik on the Reykjanes Peninsula, and there is inflation, earthquake activity, and of course, there's concern that there may be a little eruption. What's the latest status from your perspective?
Well, the what we've had ongoing sort of the last week is continued inflation at the rate of about 8 millimeters per day, which is actually significant. And for comparison, the inflation rate per day in the Krapla fires was about 5 millimeters.
Oh, okay.
And also we've had continued seismic activity, but over the last sort of 24 to 48 hours, it's been since that intense earthquake swarm that took place 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going. The seismic activity seems to be quieting down.
Okay.
Whether that means, you know, it's just that swarm, seismic swarm is over and it'll come a little pause and then it will pick up again, or whether it is really quieting down, we don't know.
Yes, that's my worry. I was about to ask, how can we be sure how to read that? And of course we can't. So as you just said, so this is not uncommon that seismicity goes down a little bit and then the eruption kicks off. But my understanding is the seismicity has been at about 4 to 5 kilometers depth and it hasn't migrated upwards very much. Is that still correct?
Yeah, that seems to be the main locale of the seismic activity. There has been shallow earthquakes and periods of shallow earthquakes, but there's no sort of indication of direct migration from, you know, deeper to shallower earthquakes. So, but you know, if you take that all together, you know, having the inflation and the earthquake, the seismic activity, and sort of with the locale, the inflation at 4 to 5 kilometers depth, most of the earthquakes are a similar depth, is basically suggesting that the deeper magma storage zone, that is probably sort of 10 kilometers plus underneath Reykjanes, is now feeding magma into a shallower storage zone, which is at 4 to 5 kilometers depth, under Svartsengi. Yes,
that's interesting. I was talking to some of our seismologists here yesterday, and they say they see some anomaly at about 10. That's kind of from previous data at 10 kilometers depth, and this might be this larger reservoir you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then there may be fingers feeding up. Let me quickly go to the map, if that's okay. Let's start here, and yeah, let me start with this webpage. I don't know whether you're familiar with this, but I love this webpage. It's basically asking, is there an eruption yet? And the answer is no. So you can go there, and once it starts, it probably says yes. But of course, I mean, this is a gimmick. The important thing here is this is the map. And this is the lava field from the last few eruptions. This is the 21 lava field, 22 here, 23. And this is the burnt moss. You can see it to be a little darker. This is the vent. This is Little Rutur. And there you see it coming down into Meradal here. And this is Nafthagi in the south, which never quite reached the road. But the current earthquake activity is more to the left, more to the west, if I understand this correctly. And this is actually the area affected, and this is the Svartsengi power plant, and the Blue Lagoon is here. And you pointed out previously that there's this fissure system here.
Yeah, that's one of the systems that we suspect might erupt.
So do you think...
You can see the name in the center, yeah. So it's called
Nukur.
the
I better get used to this if it erupts.
Yes, Sund Núkagígar in Icelandic, or the Sund Núkur Conroe. And there's another one that seismic activity has also been aligning itself along. So it has been aligning itself along this Conroe over there in the east, but also the events of Illahraun, which is just west of the Blue Lagoon, right where you see that Norðurljósa vegur.
Yeah.
And right below that bend, that's where the arrow have now. That's actually the Illahraunskígar.
Okay.
So that is pretty close to the Blue Lagoon and the Svartsengi power plant. And seismic activity has been focused a fair bit under there, and that's also where the main inflation center has been.
Yes, inflation has been quite a bit, but it seems to go down a little in most of the areas, if I understand this correctly.
It's been going up, but except the latest measuring points indicate a drop.
Okay, so but of course that
drop of about probably close to a centimeter or 10 millimeters.
Okay, well, that's substantial, but of course this doesn't mean that things are over. So it just might imply that there's lateral migration and then the surface response. So
I would, it might indicate that magma has been moved out of the storage zone.
Yes, exactly. So this could actually mean, it could mean exactly what we don't want. This is a very unfortunate.
And whether it goes upwards or sideways is difficult to say. And there's another volcanic lineament there further to the west, which is called Eldvörp.
That one here?
No.
Oh no, this one here. Yeah, I see.
And
here, yes. Oh yeah, very nice.
And the seismic activity has also been aligning itself on that sort of a lineament. So those are the three areas that we think could potentially erupt if there is an eruption, which is of course uncertain.
Of course, absolutely. Now let's talk for a minute about how it might actually look. I mean, this is this hill here, the former subglacial volcano Thorbjörn, if I get my pronunciation right. And this is also where there are several television posts and things like that, and other kind of telephone posts and things. And of course, this is where we have a good view onto the Svartengi power plant and the Blue Lagoon. And here's Grindavik. Grindavik is a fishing village with about 2,000 people, I think.
Yes,
so,
and the webcams.
Yeah. Oh, the webcams. I have one here, I think. Let me see.
Are up on Thorbjörn.
That's exactly what I was hoping to kind of, So this is pretty recent now. So so it swings back and forth. So this is from Thorbjörn, and here, if we go a little bit back, so here we see that. So the power plant is, let's go back a few minutes. Oops.
But the power plant is further to your right.
Yes, that's right. I just need the camera to kind of go where I want it to go. So now it's coming. So here we are. That's the Blue Lagoon.
Yep, that's a
and most people don't seem to know, but the Blue Lagoon is kind of associated with the power plant because actually it uses a lot of the water that comes from the power plant.
That's what the Blue Lagoon is. It's actually
exactly
the drainage water from the power plant.
I would call it wastewater, but it sounds terrible, doesn't it? So, and here's the Svartengi.
It is the geothermal water that comes up in the drill holes, and the power plant uses it extracts the heat from that water and both to generate heat of water and also to generate electricity, and then it just basically pumps most of that briny water back down, except that what goes into the Blue Lagoon.
And there's of course the big road that connects the highway between Reykjavik and Keflavik with Grindavik, and then of course there's the CO2 storage research facility there. So it's quite a very unpleasant spot for an eruption. The last 3 eruptions, they were really in uninhabited areas. So this would be actually better if it would erupt further out and not affect these infrastructures. But well, we don't know.
A lot of important infrastructure there. There's electricity generation, there's hot water generation, there's the cold water supply comes also from this region and all the pipelines. And it's not just, for Grindavík, but it's for the whole of the Reykjanes peninsula outside of Reykjavik. So for the Reykjanes bite, where the airport is located, it also, electricity for the airport and water for the airport, and all the small towns which are on the western end of the peninsula.
That's
there's a
serious,
lot
yeah.
of infrastructure at stake here, and if you think of the value of all of this, including all the fishing factories in Grindavík, etc., we're talking about several hundred billion Icelandic kroner in terms of just investment in.
And that's still a lot in dollars, even though Icelandic kroner have a lot of zeros.
If
but
you divide that by 100, so it is, it's quite a few billions.
It is still a lot of money. Now, the Blue Lagoon closed down last night, and the issue was that tourists were apparently worried about some of the earthquakes, and it's not because there's damage, if I understand correctly, and also the earthquakes didn't cause any damage for the Svartengi power plant. So this is more like
no, it did cause, but
okay.
The minor damage.
Yes, sorry, I should rephrase that. It didn't cause any serious damage to my knowledge, but of course
the power plant is still operational.
Good.
The Blue Lagoon is still there, and the reason why they closed it is because there was this intense seismic swarm 2 nights ago, or the night before yesterday, with earthquakes between 4.5 and 4.8.
That's quite,
and
things shake a little bit. So
the 4.5 was right under the Blue Lagoon, and the 4.8 was just west of it. So those people felt it, and a number of them had enough of this whole. They couldn't sleep, so they decided to leave, and subsequently they decided to close the Blue Lagoon, and I think that was the right thing to do. They could have done this a bit earlier, and I also think they could have done a much better job of informing the tourists of what the situation was, because a lot of the tourists who were interviewed by reporters didn't even know that, up front, didn't know of the activity. So that's
not so good, actually.
No, I mean, I think it's very important to keep informing people about what the status is and what is going on, and help people to take informed decisions about things.
Absolutely.
And also give them the opportunity to make a decision about it.
Yes, that's true. But on the other side, I mean, there's this dark side of things. We know it from the White Island disaster in New Zealand. I mean, if you depend on tourism, then there's an interest of keeping the tourists coming. So, and I can see the attraction of this, but I don't think it's entirely right. You have to kind of, prioritize safety, I would think. And
people's safety, people's lives need to be a priority.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
Protecting people from harm's way should be a priority, but also at the same time, I don't think, I'm not a big supporter of banning things, and I think people should be able to make up their own mind about things, but a stern supporter of good advice and providing good information and inform people about these things. Sometimes that might, when you say that, it might come across as, painting the darkest picture. But these kind of events, and I think this is quite important, because these kind of events, there's a huge amount of uncertainty. We don't know, where it's going to happen exactly. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know how powerful it's going to be.
You don't even know if it's actually going to happen, although it looks a bit like it. But yeah. So,
but when you have that kind of uncertainty, you cannot be sure about what will happen. So you have to take into account all the possible scenarios.
Yes.
And you have to consider them. One of the scenarios might be more likely than another. And generally in eruption, it's more likely that it will be a small eruption, not that powerful, than a big, powerful eruption.
That's right. And if it comes to it, I really have hopes that it will be a small eruption, like in the last 2 years, that it will be localized, that it will fill a valley, hopefully not take a lot of infrastructure out. So that will be the goal.
We all hope that. I mean, we fear the worst and hope for the best.
Yes. Prepare for the worst, exactly.
Prepare for the worst, but exactly. But and there are situations which are possible, even though they're unlikely. The eruption could open up right underneath or next to the Blue Lagoon or the power plant.
Yes.
There's not much we can do about that.
No, nothing. You would fossilize some of the infrastructure in a time capsule for eternity. It sounds a bit romantic, but it's actually a financial disaster. So
yeah, it is. And there is even though it's unlikely, there is a possibility that the eruption will take place on the southern end of Sundhnúka lineament.
Yeah.
And if that happens, which is not by no means certain, if that happens, then you have the vents about 1 kilometer north of Grindavík.
Mm-hmm.
And you can paint it, and if the eruption rates are several hundred cubic meters per second, which is also possible, then the lava that will produce could be in the town within the hour.
Yeah, let me just get the map up very briefly. Share screen just to make sure that everybody here who listens is on the same page. So we're talking about this lineament here. And
yes, and if you see the name Melholt,
I see
further south.
Yeah, there.
That's the southern end of that fissure.
Oh yeah, okay. So and if it happens anywhere here, there's obviously a valley here that brings
a short distance to Grindavík.
Yeah.
This is an unlikely scenario, but
there's a scale possible here. So this is 1 kilometer. So yeah, it's a possible scenario. I agree with you. So
and of course we hope that it won't happen. But if you are in the emergency team, then these are kind of things that you have to take into account.
Absolutely, and there's worst case scenarios in theory, at least, is something we need to consider. So if you imagine an eruption here, the lava will run down here, probably to the sea, but it might, if it's thick enough, it might even come towards the harbor.
It will also go towards the west over the town.
Yes, and that's the thing. And then it could not only destroy the houses, but also it could fill the harbor basin. And that we know this from various places, from Heimei in the Vestmannaeyjar Islands to places like on Tenerife, Carachico eruption 1706, where economic losses are dramatic if you fill harbor basins, particularly for fishing communities.
But the good thing about the situation, the positive thing about it, it's incredibly unlikely that a fissure will open up in Grindavík.
I would hope so.
It's south of that lineament. There's none of the vents or vent systems in this region actually reach that far south.
Very good. So there's hope then.
That's a positive thing. And the further north,
the more time there is. Yes.
The more time we have, and there's also now talk about both raising protective walls, so that would divert the flow from the town. That's in the discussion now, and also around the power plant and the Blue Lagoon. So we will do everything we can to protect and save these infrastructure. And even if the lava would eventually go over those infrastructure, such walls will at least give us more time.
Exactly, it will give you time, you as in, you know, the civil protection, it will give time to extract certain movable objects. It will make sure that all the people are, of course, evacuated, and that everything that can be saved can hopefully be saved. And that is, of course, a huge plus, because immovable objects, they will be lost in a case like that. But as a lot of movable objects, when you think about these installments,
you get time to get the people out, and also the important things that you can save.
Just imagine all the computers and things like that in the power plant. I mean, it's going to make a huge difference. Okay, Thor, thank you very much for the update. I really appreciate that. Fingers crossed it will all come to nothing. That would be the ideal scenario. Fingers crossed big time. But yeah, let's see. And we'll keep an eye on things. Thank you so much, Thor. All the best. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.